I've decided to start out the year with Behind the Net by Stephanie Archer. This book wasn't even on my January TBR, but it's one of those books that whenever I see it, I'm just drawn to it for some reason, and I was really in the mood for a hockey romance. I love reading them in the winter time, so I'm trying to get through as many as possible while it's still winter. And Kindle Unlimited romances for me are just so easy to fly through. I feel like I enjoy all of them, even if they're not 5 stars. Our two main characters are Jamie and Pippa. Jamie is our NHL goalie. He hires Pippa to be his assistant. They both actually went to high school together and knew each other, but they think that the other person has no idea who they are and doesn't remember them. So they are both just pretending to be strangers, pretending like they don't know one another. When you're in Jamie's head, he is fighting his feelings for Pippa the best way he knows how, which is to just keep his distance. So he's coming off as like super grumpy, super standoffish. But then when you're in Pippa's head, she's like, oh my god, why does he hate me? What am I doing wrong? So she is definitely our more sunshiny girl, and I'm just eating it up. I'm loving their dynamic. It's super cute. I don't think this is going to be anything life-changing. I don't think I'm going to rate it 5 stars, but it's definitely in the solid 4-star range right now. And I was thinking about it, and I actually read The Deal around this time last year, and if you had asked me if I was going to give that book 5 stars at the 15% mark, I probably would have said no. And I ended up giving that book 5 stars. So you never know where this book could go. I'm excited to see how things play out, and I'll let you guys know how I end up rating it. I finished Behind the Net, and I'm gonna give this one 4 stars. It was super cute, very enjoyable, very easy to read and fly through and binge. I think if you're in a slump, this would be such a good one to pick up to get you out of your slump. It was just such a fun time. I thought the characters had great chemistry. This book was really well paced. The tension between them was so good. I thought the spice was so good. They had great banter, and I just had so much fun reading it. It reminded me of The Deal in some parts too, because the way they help each other through their struggles was just really great to see, and I really enjoyed it. My one critique of this book, I would say, is that Jamie had this nickname for Pippa, and the nickname didn't bother me. It didn't like cringe me out or anything. I went on Goodreads and I saw that a bunch of people were like commenting that they were icked out by the nickname. It didn't ick me out, but I feel like by the end it just was so overused. Like he kept calling her the nickname and nothing else, except like maybe his pretty assistant. He would refer to her as that a few times, and I was like, can you just call her by her government name like a few times? Can we mix in some other terms of endearment? Because the nickname just got to be a little overused, but it was still cute. That was my only thing with it. It was a good time. Not a 5-star, but a solid 4-star, and very enjoyable, and would recommend. This is also the start to a series, so book 2 just came out, I think. I really want to read that soon. I'll probably pick that one up in February because I am excited to continue on and read more from Stephanie Archer. The next book I've decided to pick up is The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This is one that I've always wanted to read in January because I feel like based on what I know about it, the themes of the book, the message of the book, it just sounds like a good one to start out a new year with. I love to start out New Year's with books that have good messages. I feel like it's just the perfect time when you're trying to start over fresh, make resolutions, make goals, reflect. I love reading books like this one. And I've only just started the book, but there is a quote that prefaces the book that is from Sylvia Plath. I don't know if it's from The Bell Jar or from some of her poetry, but it really makes me want to read more from Sylvia Plath because this quote just spoke to me, and it makes me so excited that the book is going to be exploring this concept. Basically, the quote says, "I can never be all the people I want and live all the lives I want. I can never train myself in all the skills I want, and why do I want? I want to live and feel all the shades, tones, and variations of mental and physical experience possible in my life." And that just really sums up how I feel all the time. I feel like I'm always trying to make the best possible decision so that I can have the best possible outcomes and have the best possible life path. And I'm always overthinking, like, what if I had chosen this instead of this? What if I lived here? What if I was friends with this person instead? And I'm just always thinking about, like, how could my life have been the best possible life? So this quote just really spoke to me, and I'm really excited that this book is going to be delving into this whole concept. I think it's super cool. It makes me really excited to dive into this one. I'm hoping I'm going to love it. I know the reviews are so split, which is another reason why I've been hesitant to pick it up. I feel like you either really love this book or you really hate it, but I'm hoping I fall on the side of loving it, and I will let you guys know how I'm feeling about it. I finished The Midnight Library, and it was one of those ones where it was just like a short book and I wanted to just plow through it and give you guys all my thoughts at the end instead of like updating throughout, because I didn't have really specific thoughts. I knew I would kind of just have a general opinion towards the end. So I'm here with my final thoughts. I have decided to give this book 4.5 stars. I thought it was great. I thought the concept was a 5-star concept. I feel like the only area that was missing for me was in the character development and our main character. I felt like for as much as I could relate to her situation at the beginning of the book, I never felt like I was putting myself in her shoes and feeling all of her emotions throughout the book and throughout her journey. So it was just a slight disconnect there, but everything else I really loved. I really liked how I got to see all the different lives that I wanted to see from her. Like, she mentioned different regrets that she had, and I wanted to see like, oh, what would her life look like doing this and doing this and doing this. There was never a time where I was like, oh, we didn't get to see this, I wish we could have seen that. Because I feel like sometimes in these conceptual type books, there's always like something left out, and I'm like, dang, I wish we got to see that scenario play out. But I was really satisfied that I got to see every single situation and scenario and life path that I wanted to see our main character live out and see how it would have been. As deep as it sounds, I feel like this book really did kind of change my outlook on life, because like I mentioned at the beginning when I started this book, I have really bad anxiety, and a lot of it comes from making decisions. I'm really indecisive because I always want to make the best possible decision so that I don't have regrets and that I'm like living the best possible life path that I can. And this kind of showed that no matter what life path you take and no matter what decisions you would have taken, there's gonna be ups and downs to all of those scenarios. Like, you may have a better career, but you never know, it could completely like change your family dynamic or change one little thing that could flip your whole world upside down. So I thought that was a really interesting way to view things, and it really did make me look at certain things in my life differently. And even though the grass may seem greener, there are ups and downs to every scenario. So I really liked how that was explored. Like I said, I feel like there could have been a little more character development, and I could have been a little more connected to our main character. But other than that, I thought it was really solid. Definitely check the trigger warnings, but I would recommend this one. Not quite a 5-star, but a really great one to start out a new year with. And I loved the message and the themes in this book. I have started the next book that I'm going to be reading for this video. I feel like this could be a really strong contender for a 5-star. This is Daisy Hates by Jessa Hastings. It is book 2 in the Magnolia Park series. I read book 1 all the way back in September, which sounds a lot longer than it feels because I think about those characters all the time, and I rated that book very highly. I rated it 4.75 stars. I feel like the only thing that was missing for me to give that book 5 stars is that I just needed a little more time with the characters and more time in the world, because there kind of was an adjustment period at the beginning of the book. Jessa Hastings' writing style is very poetic and very lyrical, and I love it, but it did take some getting used to. And the way she kind of sets up the story, she just kind of dumps you in, and you're trying to figure out who all these people are, what's going on, and you're just kind of like thrown into the action, and then things are explained to you along the way later as you go. So it did take some getting used to, whereas going into this one, there's not really an adjustment period because I already know who these characters are. Not super well because we didn't really see much of them in Magnolia Parks, but I know of them, so I feel kind of like used to them now and used to the world. So I'm excited to read from all these characters' perspectives. And in this book, we actually get 3 POVs, which I wasn't expecting since we just get Magnolia and BJ's point of view in the first book. But in this book, we're getting, of course, Daisy's perspective, and then Christian, who is kind of the love interest of Daisy, and then we get Daisy's brother, Julian's perspective, who I've heard so many great things about. I think everyone loves Julian, so I'm excited to find out why. And I think I've kind of heard people say you're either a Magnolia girl or a Daisy girl. You prefer one over the other. I just assumed I would be a Magnolia person because I think that's what the majority of people tend to gravitate towards. I feel like people prefer Magnolia and BJ's books, and I rated that one highly, so I was like, I'll probably be a Magnolia person. I don't know if I'm gonna rate this one as highly, but we'll see. Already, I feel like I'm connecting to Daisy's character so much more, and she's kind of making me see all the things that I didn't like about Magnolia. I would say all these characters are very flawed and very unlikable in ways, but I feel like Daisy's character makes decisions more out of logic, and she's very smart and she thinks things through, whereas Magnolia, I feel, kind of acted on impulse a lot of times. She could be very childish and immature, and I don't know, I just really like Daisy. I feel like she's really self-assured, really confident, and I love reading from her perspective. The only thing about her chapters is that there are footnotes in them, and It's a lot of them. Like every single page has footnotes and they feel kind of redundant and a little bit cringy to me, but maybe as time goes on I'll get used to them. But other than that, I really am enjoying it. I already am getting the 5-star feeling. I'm so entertained by this story. I can't wait to see where it goes, and I hope it ends up being a 5-star for me. I will keep you guys posted. Guys, so one of my reading goals for this year actually was to try and read one book at a time. I feel like last year I was reading like 4, sometimes up to 5 books at a time, and it just got to be so chaotic. And I think my thought process was I didn't want to get slumped out, and if I was getting bored of one book, I could switch off to another book, and I would always have kind of something on the back burner that I was in the middle of, and I thought it would help me get through more books quickly. But I also found that in addition to just being a bit chaotic, it kind of made me not fully appreciate the books I was reading as much. I don't know, I feel like my attention was just in too many places at once, so I couldn't really be intentional with my reading and like focus on one thing, and I feel like that's what I want to try and do this year. But I will say Daisy Hates at this point I'm pretty confident is going to be a 5-star read, but it's not one of those books that I can just fly through and sit down and binge and read in like a few sittings, because it is on the heavier side. It is about a very toxic relationship, multiple toxic relationships and toxic people. And as much as I'm loving that, and as much as it's entertaining me and I'm enjoying it and the writing is incredible, it's not something I can read in one sitting. Like I said, I have to take breaks from it. So I thought that in cases like this, I'm gonna allow myself to read something else and switch between a few different books. So I have decided to pick up Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross, which was actually going to be the book that I was planning to pull out if I was like, okay, this video is going on forever and I still haven't found a 5-star read, because I was so confident that this book was going to be a 5-star with how much I've heard just the best things about it last year and this year as well. So I've started and picked up Divine Rivals. I'm switching between Divine Rivals and Daisy Hates, and unfortunately like 30-something% of the way into Divine Rivals, it's been a really slow start. It's been really hard for me to get into, and I'm not loving it the way that I thought I would. I think the writing is beautiful. I think the concept is so cool and unique, and I knew that this was like a very light fantasy, so I wasn't expecting a crazy magic system and a lot of world building, but I feel like it is kind of lacking in those areas for me. I feel like I want more descriptions and explanations of the world around them and the setting and kind of the situation and what's going on. And I love a character-driven book. I don't need a lot of plot, but I don't know, I feel like the characters aren't that strong to me yet, but I do feel like the things people love about this book are kind of yet to come, because I know people love the romance and they say the ending is like just jaw-dropping, which obviously haven't gotten to the ending and the romance hasn't picked up yet. So I feel like the best is yet to come. I'm just gonna have to keep reading. I just wanted to update to say that I'm now 57% of the way into Divine Rivals, and it's getting so much better. The romance has picked up and I'm just like rooting for these characters. I love the trope of letters being sent between characters, or emails or texts or messages. That is just one of my favorite things in books, and I'm absolutely loving it. Also, the stakes have kind of heightened, the setting has kind of changed. I don't want to give anything away, but I'm really enjoying it. I feel like it just took a bit for me to get into it, and I'm just eating it up. It's so wholesome. The characters are so sweet and I'm rooting for them to get together. It's great. I'm loving it, and so I just had to update you guys to say that my thoughts have changed on Divine Rivals and I'm really happy about it. I finished Divine Rivals a couple days ago. I needed some time to sit with my thoughts on it, because right after finishing it I felt so conflicted on what to rate it. I still feel a little bit split on it, but I think I have settled on a 4-star for this book. It was a hard one for me because the book kind of did this for me. I feel like it started out really slow and it was hard for me to get into, but then the middle really picked up and I was really enjoying it, and then the end slowed back down, and the only thing motivating me to continue reading was to see what this crazy ending was going to be that everyone says is just the craziest, most jaw-dropping cliffhanger. So I really wanted to know what was going to happen. I had predictions. I kind of knew what was going to happen. I just didn't really know how everything was going to come about. I feel like the ending made me realize that I wasn't as invested in the characters as everyone else because the ending didn't seem that crazy to me. Like, it didn't make me want to immediately jump into book 2. I definitely will pick up Ruthless Vows at some point because I would just like to know how the story plays out, but I'm not like dying to immediately jump into it right now. I also feel like in the last 30% of the book, the romance just progressed so quickly to where I really had to kind of suspend my disbelief. I understand it was like a high stakes situation and it's a different time period, but I was still left feeling a little unconvinced. Like, I feel like we could have spent a little more time with them sending letters back and forth before it progressed the way that it did. But I did really enjoy the story overall. I did think the romance had really sweet moments, especially in the middle section of the book, and I really enjoyed the characters, especially Iris's character. I think she was really strong, and I think that the way the story was structured was also really well done. The way we kind of moved from one setting to another, the way it just transitioned, I thought was done really nicely. And if this movie ever gets adapted, I was picturing the whole time Timmy as Roman and then Saoirse Ronan as Iris. I think that would be perfect casting. They just fit the descriptions so well in my mind as I was reading. Those are my thoughts. A little bit mixed. I feel like I'm coming off kind of negative, but I think when you go into a book expecting it to be 5 stars, it's almost more disappointing when it's a 4-star than if you went into a book with no expectations and gave it like 3 or 2 stars. So that's how I'm feeling. I did enjoy it. I thought it was a good story. Sadly, not the 5-star I thought it would be, but Daisy Hates is still a really strong contender. I am feeling like it is going to be a 5-star. I'm still loving it and enjoying it, but just taking my time with it. So I'll update you guys as I have more thoughts on that book. I'm still making my way through and loving Daisy Hates. I don't have a ton left, but I'm still really confident this is going to be a 5-star read. I so regret not annotating this book because the quotes in here, I know everyone says it, but Jessa Hastings' writing is just like nothing I've ever read before. The way she can so poetically write about heartbreak and falling in love, and it's just so unique. It's like nothing I've ever read, which if you've read from her before, you definitely know what I'm talking about, but it's really hard to describe if you haven't experienced her writing for yourself. It's just so unique and so beautiful, and I love it, and I wish I'd annotated this so I could go back and refer to all these quotes. But I definitely think once I finish the series, I'll do a reread at some point and heavily annotate everything, because I've heard people say too that going back and rereading it, you pick up on so many little clues that Jessa drops in throughout. I definitely want to experience that at some point, but I am just still absolutely loving this. I love Daisy. I definitely think I'm a Daisy girl over Magnolia. Even the footnotes in her chapters aren't bothering me anymore because they just fit her character so well, and I've kind of just grown to like them along with liking her character. All good things. I really don't have a bad word to say about this book, but my main reason for coming on to update you guys is because I've actually finished listening to an audiobook since I last spoke to y'all, which was kind of unexpected. I promise I'm not trying to drag this video out forever. So I had an Audible credit. I was going through. I'm like, I don't know what I want to listen to because all the books on my January TBR, I pretty much wanted to read physically. So I was going through, listening to a bunch of samples of stuff, and I just randomly decided to listen to Yellowface by R.F. Kuang, which has always been on my TBR, but just never at the top of my TBR. I was never dying to pick it up. I was like, I'll get around to it whenever I feel like it. And I don't know, I always hear good things about it. I read Babel and really enjoyed it. I was interested to see her writing take a different direction because I've heard this one's kind of more like lit fic, thriller, so that sounded interesting to me. And after the first few chapters, I was kind of like, okay, I'm not sure about this. The premise that I kind of expected had all happened when people describe what Yellowface is about. That was kind of played out in the first few chapters, so I'm like, I have no idea what direction this book is gonna take now. And it kind of ended up being that way for the whole story. Like, a situation would play out and I'm like, okay, now what? I have no clue where this is going. And it kept me on the edge of my seat the whole time, and the more I listened, I just got more invested in the story, and it was so enthralling, and it just got better and better, and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm loving this. I am obsessed. This might be a 5-star read. I was getting the 5-star feeling, and I was like, how funny would it be if this unexpected audiobook that I had no plans to listen to ends up ending the video, and I haven't even talked to you guys about it. But I did end up giving it 4.75 stars. It was almost a 5-star, but I just don't think it's gonna be the kind of book that has a really deep, lasting impact on me. Like, I just don't see myself thinking about it all the time. But in the moment, I loved it so much. I thought it was incredible. And it was really cool to see R.F. Kuang just take a totally different direction, because I feel like she is so smart and her writing is so smart. I loved it. I thought it was so good, and I hope R.F. Kuang just keeps kind of branching out like that. So such a good time, but I'm still fully expecting Daisy Hates to be my 5-star that ends off the video, unless something crazy drastic changes from here to the end of the book, but I will let you guys know once I have finished. I'm here to close out the video because I finally finished reading Daisy Hates, and I did in fact give this book 5 stars. I thought it was incredible. My reaction when I finished it was just like, wow. I had no words. I loved it so much. It is so hard for me to believe that these characters are fictional and that they're not real people, and the things that they go through aren't real things happening to them, because I'm just so invested. And the way this is very much a character story, but it's like a slow build, and everything's kind of dropped throughout to where it all crescendos and like builds up at the end to just make the perfect ending. Another thing I really liked about it was how the timeline is the same timeline of events as Magnolia's story, but it's not told in a way where it's like all the same events regurgitated from these characters' point of views. It's very much like the Hates family, and these characters have their own stuff going on. They're very much involved in completely different things, but there is some overlap because they're mutual friends within the group. So when they'll all get together, sometimes it would be like the same event, and I'm like, oh, I remember reading about this in Magnolia's book. But in seeing it from these characters' eyes, you're like, wow, I didn't know this was happening behind the scenes. I didn't know how these characters were feeling about this certain thing. So I really liked the way the story was told. I definitely think I am a Daisy girl. I so preferred her to Magnolia's character, but I just can't wait to continue on with this world and be back with these characters again. I'm planning to pick up the 3rd book very soon. This book ends off with a little snippet from Magnolia and kind of what she's doing now, so I just can't wait to continue on with her story in book 3, and I can't wait to continue on with book 4. I feel like Daisy's next book has the potential to be a 6-star read for me. I'm also really curious to see when the hype for Julian comes in, because I feel like it is book 4. Because after reading this, I was like, okay, like Julian's fine, but I'm not as obsessed with him as everyone else is. So I'm interested to see where his character story is going, but absolutely loved this. An easy 5 stars. Cannot wait to continue on with the series, and especially so excited to read Daisy's next book. So if you're still watching, if you're still here, if you've made it this far, leave me a comment below and tell me if you've had any 5-star reads so far this year, and if so, what they are. If you enjoyed watching, be sure to give me a thumbs up and hit the red subscribe button if you are not already subscribed to my channel. I would love to have you guys stick around. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you so soon in my next video. Bye guys.